Hi there, I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with managing editor of the Edmonton Journal, Dave Breckenridge. Hey, Dave.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I see you're fancy in the collared shirt. Meanwhile, I'm slumming it in a hoodie, taking Casual Friday a little too literally.
Dave, you're at home. You've been in quarantine. You've been in quarantine for a number of weeks now. I think it's okay. It's
That's
okay.
yeah,
I
I
think
think
it looks
so.
silly for people to wear dress suits at home when we're on this. Come on. There's no need for it. Everyone knows Everyone knows no one's wearing pants anymore here.
I just wish I hadn't bought two suits like a month before all this happened. I bought two brand new suits.
Have you
And
resisted putting on the COVID-19 pounds being at home?
so far, I eat less at home than I do at the office, surprisingly. I tend to snack through the morning at my desk at work. Try not to bang my microphone around here. But yeah, I tend to snack less at home, which is kind of funny.
I was putting on weight, and then finally about a week ago, I thought, okay, time to start exercising, and I've been doing that. I set our timer so it goes off like every 90 minutes, and I do like a quick set of barbell exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I just turn into jello. Alrighty, we're going to do the top 10 tweets from Alberta and around the world on the COVID-19 epidemic. Dave, why don't you start with your first tweet?
So this is from a Saskatchewan resident, and Saskatchewan is kind of starting the relaunch of the reopening of things in early May. This is Saskatchewan resident Wheat and Oil at Wheat and Oil. This is legitimately difficult. At home with the boys today, went outside, and it's basically impossible to keep them away from the neighbor kids. They're so desperate to play. It's going to be hard to strike a balance. And I think that's something that a lot of, even in Alberta, I notice kids are outside and kids who reside next door to one another. I see them playing together, and I think, should they be? But like, I'm not their parents, and I'm not going to judge the parents because I know what it's like now for kids to be stuck indoors.
Yeah, mine's a related tweet, Dave. It's from writer Red at Red Painter One, and this person, I don't know if it's male or female. All teachers should be earning $250,000 a year. Signed, an exhausted parent serving as a long-term substitute for one obnoxious seventh grader. Hashtag distance learning. It's been, I think, I'm lucky. The two, I've got two at home right now. I've got five kids, but two are at home, and they're
Mm-hmm.
one's in grade 9 and one's in high school, and so they're able to work on their own. I can't imagine how difficult it is right now for two classes of parents. If your kids are in primary school and you're like really feeling the need to educate them, like to do that work with kids, teaching them the math and the English, we're not teachers. We're not,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have that qualification. You can read with your kid, but that like trying to get through the schoolwork with someone in primary grades, that's got to be hard. But the people I feel most sorry for, if you've got a child under the age of 3 or 4, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't take them to the mall. At least it's getting warm out now, but you can't take them to the mall. You can't take them to the museum. Like we would
Mm-hmm.
go there, those places all the time. We were going crazy just to get out of the house when we had little kids.
Yeah, exactly.
And man, it would be so hard. So all you people out there with little kids, you're the real, along with the people in the hospitals fighting this thing, you are the real heroes. You're going through the hard time, because that is hard.
Yeah, it is. We had a zoo membership when we lived in Calgary. And I was like, oh, hey, it's kind of nice. Let's go to the zoo. My next one is from Dan Orlovsky, who's a retired NFL quarterback at Dan Orlovsky 7. One of the great things quarantine life has taught me about parenting is it's far more important to be with than it is to do with. I'm always wanting to do. They just want me to be present with them. And that's huge. Like, my kids, I think, are excited that I'm at home more often now, or for longer hours now, because I don't have a commute to an office. And we get to hang out a bit more. I'm sure they would want me to do more, but I think they're happy just to kind of have me with them more.
Yeah, I think it's my teenagers are old enough. They do not want to do stuff with me. When they're younger, they really do. When they're younger, they really, so maybe he's got older teams, the NFL quarterback, they're
Yeah.
older kids. But yeah, younger kids really often do crave the attention of their parents, and it can be exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So, Dave, we were talking about this before we came on, just how partisan this is, and how I'm starting to find the partisan nature of every single issue that comes up around this, because fundamentally, I mean, I know the economic piece aside, but the science piece of this is not partisan. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
very difficult thing because science is uncertain and it's changing and it's going this way and that way. And that's how science works, gradual increases of knowledge. Um, checking it, seeing if it works, seeing if it doesn't work. This isn't political, any of this stuff. Whether a medication works or not is not a political issue. But I thought this tweet from former Democratic Secretary of Labor Robert Reich at
Yeah.
RB Reich. Now was he Clinton or Obama? I'm getting my eras mixed up. Do you recall?
It sounds like a more familiar recent name, so I want to say Obama, but I could very well be wrong.
So he summarizes the issues in the United States. Now he's a Democrat, so he's putting a bit of spin on this, but I think I liked his spin because it shows how political a lot of stuff to me shouldn't, is political. So here he goes. He says, quote, no to hydroxychloroquine, bleach, disinfected, reopening economy, bailouts of big corporation, lies and fake leadership. Yes to more COVID-19 testing and tracing, sheltering in place, paid sick leave, PPE, income support for Americans during this crisis, real leadership. So I'm not going to comment on the politics of what he's saying, other than to say some of these things are medical issues. Many of the things on his list, they shouldn't be breaking down along conservative progressive lines. We should all be trying to, when we're talking about these, like what medication works and doesn't work, what's the best place for reopening the economy is in large part a scientific question as well. And the more we can just try to stick to the science, I think, and not take off our partisan hats, take off our partisan goggles on those kinds of issues, the better off we're all going to be.
Yeah. But speaking of disinfectant and whatnot, my next tweet is from PBS reporter, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Yamik Elsindor.
Yamiche, I think.
Yamiche. I apologize to...
I probably have it wrong too.
I apologize. President Trump on his comments about possibly injecting disinfectant and light into a person's body as a COVID-19 cure. Quote, I was asking sarcastically to reporters just like you to see what would happen, which I saw the clip and I kind of like the way that he turned to scientific officials off to his right. It didn't seem like he was being sarcastic, but I don't know. It just reminded me of instances on the Aaron Sorkin show, The West Wing, where the president, played by Martin Sheen, would crack a joke and no one would get it. And he would be reminded by one of his aides that you shouldn't crack a joke. So it was a ridiculous clip. It didn't sound like he was being sarcastic. But even if he was being sarcastic, why would any elected official say something like that out loud in a press briefing ever? I don't understand.
I don't comment on Donald Trump because I'm and I do not have to. I don't have to wade in and sort out what's going on down there.
Yeah.
All right. So others could. Oh God. Anyway, This is from behavioral scientist and writer Carolyn Orr. And she says, as we see more and more COVID-19 studies, always remember that science is a process and we should expect to see varying results that eventually merge towards a consensus. Results that conflict with each other aren't a sign of bad science. They're a sign that science is happening. Every time a new study makes the headlines, some contingent of people immediately seizes on the findings as proof that all the other studies were wrong. That's not how science works, though. A single study adds to the existing body of the evidence. It doesn't nullify it. So she quite eloquently said what I was trying to say in my ramble about Robert Reich there. Mm-hmm. She's bang on. Let's just, when it comes to science and the scientific process, we all got to calm down. And especially when we're putting a political lens on it. Partisanship on this issue makes us stupid and potentially dangerous. So just watch it. Watch what you're just... Be careful.
Well, and I find interesting, just a quick comment on that. So you look at the two things that are being talked about in relation to COVID-19 are there possible existing treatments and are we going to get a vaccine?
Yeah.
And the people who are pushing the existing treatments tend to be from the right. There's a big, like Donald Trump is talking up hydroxychloroquine, and then Donald Trump supporters are on the flip side accusing Bill Gates of trying to poison us or make billions of dollars off of possible vaccine. Like, it's just take all of that out of the, like, either, okay, if people think that hydroxychloroquine could work, it should be studied. We don't need people stockpiling it because it's a treatment for lupus. And then on the flip side, if you believe the science that hydroxychloroquine works, why would you not believe that Bill Gates is altruistically trying to get a vaccine so we can deal with this, like, across wide swaths of the population? It is just crazy. It is just, I get worked up over the nonsense. And maybe I should just put the nonsense aside, and I don't know. Anyway, so
the hydroxychloroquine stuff, yeah, like, if I'm not mistaken, though, if memory serves, Dave, hydroxychloroquine was one of the 4 drugs identified by the World Health Organization for study at the start of this. They picked out, I think, 4 different treatments to study around the world. So this is a serious. It could be part of the solution here.
It could be, but it's the whole idea that Trump is saying let's prescribe it and you should take it. Well, we don't know.
The second Trump brought up the subject, the debate got stupid. The second he mentioned it, it suddenly went from kind of an interesting scientific debate about whether this drug's going to work or not, and we should all be hoping that it works. I shouldn't have to remind people. We should all be hoping this or one of the other 4 or something else is going to work. But the second Trump interjected with his comment, everything went crazy about it. You couldn't say anything without people going nuts, is what I found suddenly. And it was just ridiculous. And I mean, this in Alberta, this has been compounded because doctors were actually hoarding it. And the chief medical officer, Dina Hinshaw, had to speak out against them. And the hoarding of the drug was problematic on 2 fronts. It gave credence to the idea this stuff works. If doctors are hoarding it, what does that tell you? So suddenly my hopes were, maybe they know something we don't know. But the second thing is, what if it doesn't work, they're giving credence to it? Like, that was a huge problem. Like, anyway, this is just a mess. All of this science stuff should be best left in the hands of scientists. I think we're all learning that. I'm learning that. We're all learning that. So
my next tweet is from MSNBC. It's sorry that my internet just went wonky there for a second. It's MSNBC. It's got a link to a story. It's Dr. Fauci, who has been kind of a steady rock in the U.S. In Alberta, we have Dr. Dina Hinshaw. This is Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's a infectious disease specialist with the Trump administration. He pleads with governors to be careful and measured before opening. And the tweet is, Dr. Fauci cautions officials and the public to, quote, carefully consider how to return to normalcy in order to prevent a, quote, rebound of COVID-19. Quote, although I know one has the need to leapfrog over things, don't do that. Do it in a measured way, which is not unreasonable. It's what other jurisdictions are saying. It's what, in Alberta, that's what they're talking about here. Premier Jason Kenney is talking about, he sympathizes with people that want to see the economy reopen, but we can't just reopen the doors and let all the virus back in because we'll be overrun, right? Like, it's slow and measured, and I think that's the only way that anybody is going to have success, and possibly not as steep a second wave, with this virus.
There will be a third, probably, and a fourth probably as well. So listen, the scientists are debating what is the best approach, and if you want to have 0 deaths, then you lock everything down.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. We did it. We've done it. My position on this is, we took a really hardcore stance as quickly as we could in Alberta, and I think we did the right thing. We've stomped down on this. In Edmonton, we're pretty much flat for the last 2 weeks in terms of new cases. We've done a really good job, and this puts us in a good place. We didn't know anything about this virus at first. It was overwhelming healthcare systems. Every day that goes by, we know a little bit more how dangerous it is, how long we're going to have to live with it, and what that's going to mean. So we're just in a much better position now than we were a month ago to make a decision, because having this amount of experience and putting ourselves in this we've paid a high price in terms of the economic cost, but I think we're in a good position now to make the next decision that has to be made between both our political leaders and our healthcare leaders.
Yeah.
All right, this is from Scott Henning, at Scott Henning. He's the president and CEO of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and he says, quote, "I'm very concerned about the size of the national debt. Yes, for the sake of our children's future, but also because we own an expensive national debt clock that will soon be obsolete because of the lack of digits." And, you know, the Conservative MP from Ottawa, Pierre Poilievre, I thought made a good comment. Like, there's widespread agreement that governments have to spend right now. Like, I don't really see a whole lot. That's the consensus from the left to the right. Everyone's kind of saying it, but it can only go on so long. Government can't replace 20 million workers or 15 million workers, whatever percentage of the workers are that now are sidelined and sitting there. Government can't create the wealth of 20 million people in Canada working away at top speed like we usually do. And no matter how, there's not enough money in the world. This isn't going to work. So we're going to have to figure out a way, coexisting with this virus, to get as many people back as we can, as soon as we can, without getting a huge upswing in the disease.
Yeah. And my last tweet to the day is from our friends over at CBC. This is Power and Politics. This is after the Globe and Mail reported that 1 million face masks from China failed to meet standards. Vashi Kapelos asks Navdeep Bains if other equipment brought to Canada has been found to be defective, and it's a link to the video. And I included this because I was really frustrated with Navdeep Bains' scripted response to this question. He didn't answer the question at all. He just kept saying, you know, there are going to be concerns with ordering from other countries, and that's why we're working hard to get online production here in Canada to get PPE made here. That doesn't answer the question. I think that Canadians and Canadian healthcare workers and care home workers and all have a right to know whether the stuff that we're importing is good quality. Obviously, there's been problems found with some of them. And the fact that he wouldn't say, like, well, we're looking into other problems with them, or we don't know yet, even though we don't know, is better than what he said. And he's doing people a disservice as a member of the Liberal government to have a scripted answer like that. That's the kind of thing I expect in question period, but not when the media is trying to hold the government to account.
It's just like, I understand him wanting to just stick to the script, and that's what they're told to do, because it's such a partisan time. And if you admit to any mistake, people will jump down your throat. So he could get in the scripted line, right? There's going to be problems, but then he could also tell that he could have just answered the question. She was saying, is more equipment defective? He could have said, yeah, we're finding 20% of it or 30% of it. This is the problem. Like, he's worried about the fact that the Liberal government, you know, they were cutting their national stockpile of inventory. They didn't have a plan for masks at all. They had no plan for masks. Okay, that's true of the Liberals. It's true of every single Western democracy, Dave. It's true of them all. None of them had the masks. None of them were ready. I mean, the guy in Alberta did a great job of trying to get masks. We could share some, but we've gone from 200,000 masks a week to 4.2 million masks a week. And this is just for our healthcare workers. Who was ready for that? Now, it turns out this one guy at Alberta Health Services was kind of ready for it, but he can't get good product. The nurses and the doctors have problems with it. And like, you can't get the really good stuff anymore. So we should all take it easy, a little bit more easy on the Liberals. None of the governments were prepared. Just answer the question now and tell us what your plan is now to be prepared. Yeah. And that's what I would say. Like, just admit the mistake. It happened. Here's how we're going to fix it. Yeah. How about that?
For sure.
And okay, we'll just finish up with radio TV host Mark Simone. And he's from New York. And he says, Sweden and Michigan both have a population of 10 million. Michigan in total lockdown has 32,000 cases. Sweden, open with no lockdown, has 16,000 cases. half the number of cases with no lockdown and everything open, unquote. And to me, Dave, this is like, don't look at the problem. Don't look at
you can't compare
the
Sweden and
situation
Michigan
that way. You can't,
yeah
exactly. Go ahead.
yeah well I was just going to say, like, you can't, like, yes, looking at bare numbers, that sure you can compare them and say that, you know, maybe if Michigan had followed what Sweden had done, they'd have fewer cases, but maybe they'd have way more cases. We don't know, like, are there people like working in essential jobs that can't stay home, and then they come home, they have large families, or are they, you know, like, what is the density in some of these places where there are high number pockets of cases in Michigan? Like, what are the what's the demography of infection in the two places? But I don't know.
This is the point. I did a column today on, you know, because a lot of Albertans are saying we should follow the Swedish model. And I'll tell you what, I think Alberta is a lot closer to the Sweden, like, to being like the Swedes. We're kind of a Nordic people than Michigan is. But comparing Michigan to Sweden, I just think is nuts. Like, and in terms of the number of cases, like, how much does Sweden test even compared to, Sweden may be doing a lot less testing. It's just really problematic to, and this is the point that Dr. Dina Hinshaw made. It's really a problem to try to, let's see, Sweden has 9,000 tests per million, USA 15,000. So they're probably doing a lot more testing in Michigan. I'm just guessing if they're at the US average than they are in Sweden. You can't tell from cases. And listen, the Swedes are a very homogenous group of people. They're known. It's a cold climate, and they're known. They're a socially distancing culture already. So, and they're following the rules. You know, I heard one of the top Swedish doctors saying, you know, proudly, you know, you can kind of count on the Swedish people to be following the rules. So the rules that work in Sweden may not work elsewhere. So if Sweden has a lot of success with this, and they might, we're going to have to be careful about following their model. Although I think Albertans might be able to pull it off.
Possibly. I guess we'll see.
Or not. Maybe we'll keep going with the kind of the zero tolerance model that we have, which I think, again, was the right move initially, but we'll see going forward how we can maintain that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Dave. Thanks for talking today.
Not a problem, David.
And thanks everybody for listening. And until we meet again, see you later. Stay healthy.